Thanks for joining, everyone. My name's Doug, and I'm the Head of Technology and Services at Grant McGregor. Today, we're joined by our business partner, Cloud9, who work with us to deliver CRM professional services to our customers. Today's webinar is about Microsoft 365 CRM Dynamics. We'll be talking about the Lite options that are available to small and mid-sized businesses. As we go through, if you've got any questions, feel free to use the Q&A button at the top of the Teams there. Just put them into there and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. Just before we get started, just a little bit about both organizations. So Grant McGregor are a managed service provider based in Edinburgh. We look after over 100 organizations in Edinburgh and the UK. We provide IT services and cybersecurity services to those organizations. We're a ISO accredited organization, as you can see there, and we've got over 25 years of experience in the industry. So I'll hand over to Cloud9 to do their introduction and kick things off.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. And good morning, everyone on the webinar today. As Doug said there, just a brief introduction to us as Cloud9, working alongside Grant McGregor as their business partner, specifically for Dynamics 365 and business application opportunities as they come through. And just a bit of an overview on us as Cloud9. We are a specialist Dynamics and Power Platform partner, which means essentially that's all that we do. It's our bread and butter, which is why we work with the likes of Grant McGregor, in that our specialism is very much on the CRM and also the ERP side of the Microsoft solutions. So we've been doing this for around 15 years now, delivered close to 1,100 implementations at this point. And we're an accredited applications partner, again, just meaning that we work quite closely with Microsoft on the Dynamics piece, allowing us to keep up with the latest rollouts of technology and the wave releases of new functionality that come to the forefront of the application. An employed team of just over 40 people, and importantly, no offshoring in terms of our delivery, just meaning that whenever you were to speak to us about your CRM requirements, you're always going to be speaking to a Cloud9 person. We're not going to offshore the delivery to another country. Easy for handover, making sure that the information that you give to us is heard and implemented as we go through the project. We do have a unique support package that's available post-implementation. So when your CRM is in place, you would have the ability to take advantage of unlimited training, which is a very rare benefit in the market, but make sure that your user adoption for a CRM solution is as good as possible, allowing any of those core users to call on us for, how do I create this report? How do I ensure I'm getting the right information out of the system? How do I make sure that I'm progressing this opportunity in the most pragmatic way, for example? Our support team is there on hand to talk you through those and set up small training sessions for anyone that needs them. And then our methodology is very much based on transparency. And the key there essentially is making sure that when you're having initial conversations with us, we're taking those key KPIs and goals that you have as a business through the CRM itself. So it's not just about a piece of software, it's about how that solution is going to aid your business to grow and support those growth plans. So jumping into the initial packages, the first one that we're going to talk through is Sales Lite. We're then going to move on to Project Lite, and then I'll take you through a little demo of the sales and project piece so that you can see it in action a little bit. And then finally, we'll finish up on the Marketing Lite piece and give you a bit of an overview as to some of the included functionality in there. So starting with Sales Lite, as you would expect, Sales Lite really is your core pipeline management feature. So this is going to give you the ability to manage and have great visibility over your lead and opportunity pipeline, any inquiries that you have coming in, managing the information and the tasks that are required to move that from a lead through to an opportunity or a more likely deal, let's say. Of course, off the back of that, you will have the ability to manage your account and contacts, and that can be different tiers. More than likely that you're going to have multiple contacts for multiple different accounts. So the relationships there is a lot of what we would talk to you about in terms of how that needs to be set up. You know, how many contacts are needed for individual accounts? Do you have an account hierarchy, parent-child account structure? That kind of thing is absolutely possible within Dynamics, but requires us to obviously get our heads around it with you before we can implement it accurately to support your business. You will have the ability to quote out of Sales Lite. There are a limited number of products that you can assign to opportunities, service lines, individual products, if you like. And that is going to feed your individual forecasting in terms of expected revenue, and then generating quotes directly out of the system, again, enabling a bit of efficiency rather than needing to be in multiple different systems to quote. You're working directly from an opportunity that has all of the information as to what the services you're providing are, what the costs of those are, and perhaps any descriptions that are required for a quote document before it goes out to the customer. And that can be sent directly from the system to the customer. Of course, with it being a Dynamics Microsoft product, you will have native integrations with the likes of Teams, SharePoint, and Outlook. When it comes to Teams, that's giving you the ability to share individual information with members and colleagues of your team. So it's sharing automatic links and access to opportunity records or account records to get your team's thoughts, opening chats from within Dynamics that are giving you the ability to collaborate and talk to team members about what's going on with certain opportunities. When it comes to SharePoint, Dynamics is not designed as a file repository. That's what SharePoint is for and what you would likely already have in place. So what Dynamics does is enable you to view that file repository from Dynamics. So it's not using additional capacity. It's not using Dynamics as the storage point for those files. It's just giving you visibility of documentation that is sitting in SharePoint from within Dynamics. So again, really easy to set up, but gives you the ability to lean on the technology that you've already got in place. And then finally, in terms of Outlook, there's a couple of different ways of managing this integration, and I'll show you one of them as part of the demo. You can either be sending emails from within Dynamics that will appear in your sent items in Outlook because it goes through the Exchange server. So exactly the same as you would expect to be sending an email in Outlook. It gives you the same capabilities just within Dynamics. The other option is to be sending emails and receiving emails within Outlook as you currently do, and tracking those emails back into Dynamics. And it would be up to you to decide what emails or which individual threads you would want to be available in Dynamics. Of course, it isn't an entirely automatic feed, typically quite dangerous for people to have every single email that goes into their inbox going straight into Dynamics. We wouldn't suggest that. But once you make that decision of wanting an email to be visible within Dynamics, you can choose to track, toggle that email into Dynamics, and that sync will stay for any replies or the ongoing thread there. Okay. In terms of activity management, there's a couple of different elements to this. That's your emails, as I just mentioned, but also phone calls, also appointments or meetings that would be syncing with your Outlook calendar. So again, giving you the ability to manage any communications or engagement that you're having with an individual, whether it's on a lead or an opportunity. But that's also task management. So setting tasks for yourself, setting tasks for other members of your team with due dates and priorities and specific details of what needs to be done, and the ability for that to be marked as complete to give you the clear visibility and knowledge of what's going on. And typically, and I'll show you this as part of the demo, we would set up core users with the ability to use a sort of task management list as part of their dashboard, so they can see what it is they need to be getting on with on a day-to-day basis, ticking those off and moving on to the next one. And then the final piece, email engagement for email tracking. This is the other side of that native integration with Outlook, and it's when sending emails from within Dynamics, it gives you the ability to track whether those emails have been opened, gives you the ability to send and delay the send of those emails, so sending it later tonight, tomorrow, next week, depending on when it's going to be appropriate for someone to receive a certain communication, and also gives you the ability to see, depending on whether an email's been opened or depending on whether you've received a response to that email, you can have tasks automatically created for follow-up. So again, I'll show you that as part of the demo when I go through that in just a second. So hopefully that all makes sense. That's a bit of an overview of the Sales Lite piece, but I'll then move on to the Project Lite piece, which typically follows on almost directly from sales. So again, I'll show you this as part of the demo, but as you can imagine, for a lot of organizations, once an opportunity has been won, there's then perhaps a project or some kind of action to be taken to manage the one deal, if you like. Now, these can be entirely separate products. You can just have Sales Lite, you can just have Project Lite, but if you wanted to have them in conjunction, that would be the typical process. Is an opportunity or a deal is won, and then you're going to be working on a project from that point forward to manage the delivery of the work, if that makes sense. So in terms of Project Lite specifically, this is essentially your work stream tracking. So what are the tasks and the deliverables that need to be completed in order for this to be a successfully delivered project? And you can have those templated. So a standard project that you're repeating for different clients gives you the ability to automate the creation of those deliverables and those tasks. But it could be that you have very custom projects each time, in which case it's creating those deliverables specific for that customer and having the ability to track them over a number of weeks or months or whatever that delivery time frame is. You can also track risk and issues. So anything that's potentially going to have an impact on budget, on timelines, raising those issues obviously as early as possible is always important. So the ability to track those and whether they've been mitigated or not is obviously key as part of project management and something that you can track against a project directly within the same record. Resource and time entry management, again, something I'll go through as part of this demonstration. But this is obviously important if you've got multiple people aiding the delivery of a project or contributing to that project. So if you want to set up their resource time and the allocation of their time, and then having them go into these projects and allocate their own time entries to the project, which is then going to draw down from the available hours or the available days to give you an idea of how you're tracking against budget. That's always going to be key. Of course, we've got the Outlook integration as we would do on the sales side for anything within Dynamics, which is giving you the communication visibility of any of those emails back and forth. And then finally is the standard automation for templating those repeatable projects, which is what I mentioned just before, giving you the ability to speed up a bit of time in the setup of these projects, allowing a bit of efficiency so that when a new project is to be created, you're not needing to spend so much time creating the tasks and creating the deliverables. If it's something that you do fairly often, we can have those templated and automatically created. And then it's just maybe that you need to go in and dot the I's, cross the T's, make a couple of adjustments that are specific for that individual client. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense when it comes to the sales Lite piece and also the project Lite piece. What I'm going to do now is take you through a bit of an overview demo of those two solutions as if you had both in place. But again, I'll remind you that the two individual solutions can and do work as standalone systems. So you don't have to have both in place. You can just have them individually. But we'll start here on the sales Lite side of things. You can see a bit of a dashboard. This is typically what we would call the home page when looking at Dynamics. This is usually what people will see first and foremost when they log into the solution. Now, in terms of dashboards, you can typically have as many as you want, but as part of the specific sales Lite piece, what we would typically do is set you up with a bit of an overview of what's going on within your pipeline, and then set you up for success with the ability to create your own dashboards moving forward, perhaps. To give you an example here, this is an opportunity analysis dashboard. So you can see you've got your sales funnel giving you the ability to see how much revenue are we holding at each individual stage of our sales process. We've got a breakdown of the actual revenue that's being won per month, giving us some good visuals on what are the best months versus the worst and where are we tracking in that. In terms of won opportunities, where have they been generated from? So if that's individual campaigns that you've been running, if it's the actual source of those leads through your website or through referral, giving you a clear indicator of what your most successful campaigns are for business. Having a look at your top customers, seeing how much they're worth to you over a specific fiscal period, whether it's financial year or quarterly, monthly, seeing who the best customers are for you as a business. And then an easy comparison of what are your estimated figures in terms of those opportunities versus the actual won revenue, sorry. And that's a really good way of just making sure that you can see the accuracy of your team when they're looking at individual opportunities. How accurate are we being in estimating what those opportunities are going to be worth to us? So essentially, as long as the information or the data is being captured within the system, we have the ability to create a dashboard or some kind of physical report. We would always say, as long as the data is good, you can have some good reporting. So a lot of the work that we will do with you is making sure that the data capture is very much specific and aligned to your business, rather than people going into individual records and feeling like there are unnecessary fields. That is the point of us as a business, is to align it to your processes and to your data capture needs, so that all of the data that's being captured against a lead or an opportunity is relevant. So if I move on now to the leads, just to give you a bit of an overview as to how that data might be presented, it's obviously designed to be familiar to anyone that's been using spreadsheets to manage their data. It gives you that same look and feel in terms of your columns, and you can move them up and down. You can filter by A to Z and change those columns if you want. If they didn't have necessary information, you can get rid of certain columns, bring other data points in. But if we were to look at an individual lead record that sits behind this, this is where it gets a lot better in terms of the data capture that we have. So individual contact information, who is this person and where are they from? Obviously, absolutely key. We can have a look at some stakeholders. Is there a stakeholder, an influencer, decision maker, a champion, making sure that we're keeping track of the people that are involved in the project. But really the key is the timeline here in the middle. And this is that communication audit history that I was talking about as part of those overview bullet points. This is your email history, it's your phone calls, it's your appointments. As you can see here, a lot of different activities that can be tracked against an individual lead, and that gives you and all of your team, importantly, the ability to see what the latest communications have been, making sure everyone's on the same page as to who's spoken to this lead about what's the latest, what needs to happen next. And importantly, in terms of what needs to happen next, is this process bar that runs along the top. Now, this is something that we can work with you to configure. Not every business has the same sales process, of course. So here we've got a fairly straightforward qualify, develop, propose, and close 4-step process. But yours could be 2 steps. It could be 8 steps. Again, that's something that we'll work with you to understand. And at some point, you're going to qualify this lead into an opportunity, which would then feed into the opportunity side of the system, which could look something like this, where you've got a list of your opportunities and a bit of a graphical view of all of those opportunities as part of what we call the deal manager. Now, this is an easy way to see, in terms of probability, the higher up the circle is, the more likely the opportunity is. The bigger it is, the more it's worth. And the closer to today, obviously, the sooner it's going to close. And obviously, we can see if any of our salespeople have left some open for close dates that are in right now, January, and not kept up to date with those. So a nice visual on that. We've then got opportunity management itself, which looks very similar to the lead. We're at the next stage of the process, if you like. But again, we've still got that timeline of communications and the ability to see all of the core information regarding this opportunity in terms of what it's worth and who our core stakeholders are. This is where we would typically add products in terms of the individual services we're offering, and then generate quotes directly out of the system to be sent to the client. And again, at some point, we're then going to close this opportunity, hopefully as one. And on the assumption that we had Project Lite also in place within your business, when closing the opportunity as one, that could then create a new project to be managed. So now we're moving into the Project Lite side of the solution. And again, they can be standalone. But if you had them together, it can look something like this, where we've got a bit of an overview of our open projects here, and an easy report for us to look at on the left-hand side, which is giving us a view of the expected days versus the actual days that we're working on in these individual projects. So just seeing how we're tracking in terms of budget. Now, again, you have the same capability to look at all of this information in one place and how we're getting on with the project. But if we go into the project record itself, this is a really nice and easy way for us to see, right, what are the headlines of this project? Who is it for? What are we trying to achieve? What are the latest reports? Of course, we've got that timeline to give us the communication history. Again, what are the latest emails, the latest phone calls, who's been speaking to who about what, making sure everyone's on the same page and there's no loss of communication. Now, the important parts, obviously, when it comes to the project are, number one, RAG status. So are we on track? Are we at risk? What are we doing to avoid any potential risk here? And then in terms of the dates and effort, this is where we're going to be able to start to generate those estimated versus actual figures in terms of our tracking against budget. So when did we expect to start versus when we actually started? When do we expect to end? And then giving us the ability to work on effort in the same vein. So what are the expected hours available for this project, or actual days, versus what's actually been completed so far? And how are these numbers completed? That's part of our deliverables. So when I was talking about having automated deliverables and tasks set up for the project, this could be all of those tasks that are created every time you create a new project. So to give you an example here, if we look at the begin install deliverable, I've got that open here. This is an initial phase, initial step that needs to be taken for all of our projects. Now, any of your resources may be coming in here and creating a new time entry and saying that they've spent 4 hours on this piece of work today. That's then going to contribute to the overall figure for this deliverable, saying that they've spent, let's say, 3 hours on this piece of work. And that would then feed back to the actual hours spent as part of this project. And that's how we start to build up an idea of the budget that we have available for this project and whether or not we're on track. I mentioned risk issues. So again, identifying anything that's possibly going to be a risk as part of this project. So if the budget's a potential issue, if there's a risk as part of demonstration, and again, monitoring those gives us the ability to ensure that we are hopefully mitigating those issues as early as possible. Stakeholders, always an important element to be able to track, who's important, what is their role within the individual project, who's looking after the KPIs, who's looking after the driver and the trigger for the project itself. And then finally, upon successful delivery of a project, as we would always hope, what went well and what went wrong, giving us the ability to manage our learnings and take those forward for future projects. Okay. So that's a quick overview of how both the Project Lite solution and the Sales Lite solution work. What I'll do now is take us back to the presentation, and we can finish off with the Marketing Lite piece, which is the final piece and a bit of a different solution. But really what's important when it comes to Marketing Lite is that it's typically for an organization that isn't quite at the stage or the size to have a full-blown marketing engine in place alongside a sales pipeline and perhaps a project management system. So as you can see, the first two pieces of functionality that are available to you within Marketing Lite are account and contact management as well as opportunity tracking. So it's almost an overlap with Sales Lite. Again, this is designed for an organization that doesn't quite have the size ready for a full pipeline CRM and a full marketing engine. This gives you a bit of both in one. So your ability to manage individual people as well as potential opportunities, but of course, the core of the system is going to be that marketing capability in terms of your online marketing forms. So placing those forms, linking those forms in individual communication so people can go and fill them out, followed by your email and survey marketing. So this is your ability to set up specific automated emails as part of a journey or an email tree, saying if someone was to open this email or if someone was to open this link or click on this link, we're going to send them this communication in 3 days' time. And you can set up those automated paths for people to follow, assuming that they follow or fit into certain criteria. So we can see we've got segmentation builders as part of this Marketing Lite tool. This is our ability to say, I'm going to create a list of people that live in London. And that can be a live list of new contacts that get created who live in London and fit that criteria. Or it can be static because you just want to have this list of 100 people that you're always sending communications to. You have the option, but once those lists are in place, you have the ability then to be sending automated communications because they fit that criteria. And as soon as they no longer fit that criteria, they would automatically be moved out of those communication lists. Okay. We've also got scoring models, so enabling us to say this specific individual or this specific organization has interacted with X, Y, and Z pieces of marketing communication, and therefore we can attach a score of 50 to them versus someone else who's also been engaging with our social media content, in which case they have a score of 100. And that starts to really build a picture of who our warmest potential customers are, let's say. And that's perhaps when we start to send triggers to sales teams to go and pick up the phone and speak to those potentially warm leads who are ready to purchase. The final elements are just around web tracking and form integration. Again, giving you the ability to send those forms out to people and track what they're doing on your website, for example. How much time are they spending on specific pages? And of course, integration to event platforms gives you the ability to run those events or webinars just like this and track attendees, track people that are signing up, and then follow up with them automatically afterwards based on the assumption that they attend. Okay, so a bit of an overview as to what all of those three solutions are. And always the important question is how much do they cost? Now, friendly for an SMB organization, Project Lite and Sales Lite both come in at $4,995 for implementation. Marketing Lite comes in at $7,995 for implementation. You will then have licenses and support to think about for an ongoing basis. That's something you can follow up with Grant McGregor on as your license provider to give you an understanding of what that might look like on an ongoing basis. But as far as setup is concerned, $4,995 for Project and Sales Lite, $7,995 for Marketing Lite. I'd like to open up for any questions. You can use the Q&A tab unless any of my team have any questions that they'd like to shout out. More than happy for us to spend the next couple of minutes answering any questions, or if not, You've got the contact information for Grant McGregor there, info@grantmcgregor.co.uk. If you'd like a follow-up conversation, more than happy to go through any of what's been shown today in more detail. And of course, if you'd like a visual of that marketing light solution that we spoke about at the end, more than happy to go through that. We just typically need a little bit more time than we had today. So happy to do that as a follow-up, or have any conversations about how this solution, project, sales, or marketing might fit your organization. And thank you very much. Go ahead, John.
Well, if you can just share with us how long the implementation for all the Lite products would usually last,
Yeah, of course. It's a bit of a collaborative process, it's probably fair to say. This is one that we would be working on with you guys as an organization. So typically we say the implementation of sales, project, or marketing Lite can be completed in as quick as 2 weeks. We have seen faster than that. We have seen up to sort of 4 to 6 weeks. There are a number of dependencies, how long you want to take as a customer to test the system. You might decide you want to take multiple weeks to test it and make sure that you're happy with how it's going. If you're a little bit quicker in terms of the testing of the system, then obviously that speeds everything up. The same goes for training. If you want extra training, if you want on-site training, those kind of things can obviously increase the length of a project. But typically, on average, we're looking at sort of 2 to 3 weeks to get this system up and running, but we can certainly do it quicker than that if you've got all of your ducks in a row and your data ready for import. It can be certainly quicker than 2 weeks, and we've seen that multiple times.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jordan.
Problem. Just a couple of extra nuggets then to use up the few minutes that we've got. One of the key elements of the Lite implementations is training, as I was just mentioning there. We would always say that probably the most important part of an implementation of CRM is going to be the training. The system can be as elaborate and as automated as you like, but if the team that you've got ready to use the system are not empowered to do so or don't know how to do so, then typically you're going to struggle to get the user adoption as high as you might want. And that therefore is going to impact your reporting if the data capture isn't quite right. So when it comes to training, we put a lot of onus on that specific element of the implementation right at the end. But how that training is run is typically entirely up to you guys. So we can offer training for all of the end users at an equal level so that they know how to use the system that's been set up. We can also do super user training or admin level training. So that's for anyone within your team who maybe needs a little bit more on the technical side of their training so that they can set up their own dashboards, as I was talking about, or maybe create their own fields within the solution so that you can be a little bit more self-sufficient using the platform. We don't want you to be entirely reliant on us to help support. Sometimes it is going to be good for you guys to have the ability to manage the system by yourselves. And then finally is train the trainer, where we might train 1 or 2 of your members of staff to train the rest of your team. And that's always good because you're probably going to have new members of staff joining. And so when they do join, you have people in the team who are able to train them on the system that you've got in place. Otherwise, you can utilize the support contract that we mentioned at the start, which gives you that unlimited training package. And you might just say to us, we've got a new member of the team. Can we spend some time getting them up to speed on how to use the system? So probably the most important element for us in terms of the implementation of any CRM solution is going to be the training, because as I said, the system can do whatever you want. But if the users are not able to use the system in the way that you thought they would, the project can be seen as a failure. And who wants that? So making sure that we have a successful project really is going to be down to the quality and the depth of training that you have at the end. And I think that takes us to time. So thank you guys very much for joining today's webinar. As said, if you do have any follow-up questions or want to have a chat about the Lite solutions for your organization, please do reach out, info@grantmcgregor.co.uk. I'm more than happy to follow up with a further call, with further demo, further discussion around how this is going to suit your business. Appreciate you guys joining. Thank you for your time. Have a good rest of your day.